What is going on, NFC South Roundtable? It is the usual suspects back here with another preview. We just broke down week 3 and broke down all of our thoughts. Let me tell you, TJ, Smitty, they were going at it. And you fan bases for the Saints and the Falcons were going at each other. So if you guys didn't check out our recent live stream breaking down what happened from week 3, make sure you guys, after this video, go ahead and check that out. But today, we are going to be giving a preview for week 4. Each year creators are going to give their thoughts on their matchups and then give their thoughts on each of their opposing teams in the NFC South matchups too. Before we do that though, real quick, do want to give a massive shout out to the sponsors of this video and the sponsors of this channel all football season long over at BetUS. Right now, you guys can get an exclusive limited time offer of a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, followed by a 125% sign-up bonus on your next 2 deposits. That is a deal on your first 3 deposits all the way up to $2,000 when you use that promo code YouTube150 when you sign up. All you got to do is use their app, go to their website, sign up. It takes less than 60 seconds. I promise you, I did it myself and I timed it because I was just curious. And you'll use that promo code as you see on the screen, YouTube150. That is YouTube150 to lock in your opportunity for this sign-up bonus. Now, BetUS can also give you a 200% crypto deposit bonus. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process, 24/7 personalized service, 365 days a year, live wagering on all major games, best betting variety in the business. You guys can even get a 10% back on your net losses 2 times a year, and BetUS can give you your very own personalized account manager. They're taking care of you and your money the way that nobody else is to give you some extra fun for this football season. But most importantly, if you or somebody you know or love is dealing with a gambling issue, please make sure you take it serious. Never gamble more than you can afford to lose. Never gamble to put food on your table. Never gamble your rent for the month. Just do it to have a little bit of extra fun for this upcoming sports NFL 2024 season. In fact, BetUS on the website even has an area dedicated to getting help if you are dealing with a gambling issue. So again, shout out to BetUS and go ahead and use that code YouTube150 to get that sign up bonus. But guys, without further ado, let's just break this down. And James, I want to start with you. Why don't you tell me what you are projecting to happen here with the Buccaneers here in week 4 after they came off of a disappointing loss, their first loss of the season against Denver?
Oh, God, Colby. I mean, disappointing doesn't even begin to describe the loss, but you know what? I appreciate that from you. Look, now they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is a Philadelphia Eagles team that almost lost to the Saints here just last week. Was a very close game there, and they're pretty banged up right now. Like, you're looking at a situation where they might be without A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and Lane Johnson and a couple of other pieces on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. For the Bucs' sake of things, it was actually just confirmed before we started recording here that Luke Gedeke, their Buccaneers starting right tackle, has cleared concussion protocol and will be available for the game against the Eagles. That's huge for the offensive line aspect of things. If you get some other guys healthy, such as Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey going forward, I think this is a game where the Buccaneers can bounce back. I do think they will bounce back in this matchup. I do have them getting a win here going forward. I don't think the team that we saw against the Denver Broncos is what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be on a week-to-week basis. You did defeat a team in the Washington Commanders who have looked better the past couple of weeks. You did defeat the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Teams have bad games. I mean, some teams have really bad games at the end of the day. I think that is not what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in terms of what defines them this season. And I do have them bouncing back in this matchup.
All right, TJ, what do you think about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers upcoming week 4 game?
I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to dominate the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to tell you why. The Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm not just saying this because they beat the Saints. I'm saying this because I look at this football team, and they're not disciplined, man. I think they're an emotional football team, and I think it played a huge role in how they came into the game versus the Saints. But I think they're going to come into this game a little lax, reading their press clippings and feeling like they got the monkey off their back. I just think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their defense gives Jalen Hurts fits. I think that they're going to get back to the things that have made them successful over the last couple of weeks. I'm talking Tampa. And I just think that the Philadelphia Eagles, they've had some issues, man. I mean, what's going to happen with Devontae Smith? I mean, having that concussion. Is A.J. Brown, is he going to play in this game with the hamstring? You know they're going to be putting emphasis on Dallas Goedert. I mean, 170 yards off 10 receptions last week against the Saints. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Tampa is going to – I think they're going to dominate the Eagles. I think that out of the teams that have to play the Eagles in NFC South, they're about to be the most impressive when it comes to going up against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Ooh, all right. Some respect there, James. Smitty, let's go down to you. What do you think about this Buccaneers matchup?
I agree with TJ, and I hate to say that again, but I feel like Mike Evans was underutilized last week, and Chris Godwin did get a touchdown, but against that Eagles secondary that's very vulnerable, man, I think that's going to be the key matchup. The wide receivers of Tampa Bay versus the Eagles defensive backs. They're young in the secondary, and it's going to show this week. Again, Jalen Hurts. You got to remember, he had 2 turnovers in the first game against the Packers. He did not perform well against the Saints, did not throw a touchdown, had an interception. So he's really showing us what he really is. And I'm going to just tell you, and I agree with TJ on this as well, Nick Sirianni is not going to be there probably with 2 or 3 more weeks. And even if they have a winning record, he's gone because they have lost respect for him. He's lost the locker room. And like he said, they're emotional, true enough. But at the same time, they aren't disciplined, and that's mainly because of their coach. When you lose confidence in your coach, guess what? Team go to play for themselves. They're not a team anymore. It's all for self. So you look at Baker Mayfield, he's got to bounce back this week too. So against that beat up Eagles secondary, I think Baker is probably going to throw for 300 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Ooh, all right. I like that. Clay, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, after you get smacked by the Denver Broncos the week before, I know Baker Mayfield's out for revenge. He torched the Eagles last year in that wild card game. He threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns on that Phillies defense. So here's the thing. If you think this game's going to be a walk in the park for the Eagles, I say think again. Let's not ignore the fact that Philly's favored here. Why? Mostly because Saquon Barkley's been crushing it. He's averaging like 5.6 yards per carry. The Eagles defense is actually putting in some work. Linebacker Zach Bonds, it's been a beast. He's sitting second in the NFL for tackles. Their defense is holding teams to just over 200 yards per game. So this is impressive enough to make for any offense being held together with duct tape and prayers right now. But let's be real here. If Tampa gets their act together, this could easily turn into a slugfest. The Bucs aren't about to roll over after the flop they had last week. Mayfield's has a chip on his shoulder at the size of a boulder. That means there's going to be trouble for this Eagles team that's barely got any healthy bodies left on the field. But I'm going to give the edge to the Eagles because they're pulling out wins even when they look like a mess. And I will say this. Don't be surprised if Mayfield and the Bucs give them all they can handle. I think this one's going to be closer than a lot of people think.
All right. So, Timothy, let's go on over to you. Why don't you let me know what you are projecting for your Saints here in week 4?
Well, I think that this is going to be a competitive game versus the Atlanta Falcons. Look, I joke around and all that kind of stuff, and we go back and forth, me and Smitty, but, man, the Falcons have improved defensively as a team. I mean, they only allow 4 touchdowns this entire season. These guys are playing inspired. You got some leadership in the secondary and Justin Simmons and Jesse Bates. You also have A.J. Terrell out there. I mean, they're a talented football team defensively. But when I look at this football team, I just see the Saints. I just do. I mean, they only allow 4 touchdowns this season. The Saints only allow 4 touchdowns this season. They have questionable quarterback play up and down. They give you this roller coaster of emotions. The Saints and the Falcons have that. Head coach who flaked out at their first job, trying to have some redemption at their second job. I mean, it's the same team. So it's kind of a wash, but I just think that I just think that the Saints are going to win this game. It's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be an emotional game for both sides. I think that the emotion of losing the way that the Falcons did and losing the way the Saints did against the Eagles, I just think that it's going to play a role. And I just think that it's going to come down to who can make the best decision, when it's all said and done, and who's going to possess the ball last. And I just think that the New Orleans Saints are going to win this football game. It's probably going to be by a field goal. Maybe like Blake Grupe come out there and kick a field goal, but I have the Saints winning this football game.
Ooh, all right, Smitty. He did give you some love, but obviously these in-division games, I mean, they are always played different. I feel like these in-division games, it doesn't always matter about which team has performed better or which team has performed worse. It's really about who is just more motivated and who prepares the best. So, Smitty, why don't you break this game down for me and give me your projections?
My projection for this game, man, the Atlanta Falcons have to continue to do what they've done the last 2 weeks, and that's run the football, control the clock. As you saw it against the Eagles, they gave up 172 yards rushing, averaging 6.9 yards a play. So that lets me know that the Falcons do have a chance to run the football effectively. They gave up 460 yards of total offense. So if they can run the ball effectively, I think Kirk Cousins could do what he needs to do to put points on the board. But again, red zone is going to be key for this game. Defensively, we saw Derek Carr struggle last week. And to TJ's point, both of these quarterbacks, they need the run game to work in order for them to be successful. So if the Falcons can run the ball effectively again this week, I think it gives them a chance to win. But I think the key matchups are going to be the Falcons' edge rushers against the Saints' offensive line. And if we can get pressure on Derek Carr and make them one-dimensional and slow Alvin Kamara down, I think that's the key to the Falcons winning this game. So this game is going to be tough. It's a rivalry game. It will be low scoring, I think, because both defenses will come to play and put pressure on these quarterbacks that have struggled early on. And I think my Falcons are going to put it out in the end with a cool field goal.
Ooh, so both of you thinking that it's going to come down to a field goal just with your own respective teams. Now, Clay and James, you guys are on the outside looking in from this big in-division matchup. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, we talked about this back in our Tuesday live stream, what the kind of division's looking like. And right now, everybody's kind of on each other's heels. Clay, let's start with you. What are you thinking about this week 4 matchup between the Saints and Falcons?
Well, I'm going to give you a history lesson on this one. The Saints have been owning the Falcons in these situations, and here why. The Saints have won 4 straight Sunday games as road underdogs. The Falcons, meanwhile, have choked in 5 of their last 6 week 4 games as favorites, and they can't close it out when it counts. New Orleans covers the spread in 12 of their last 13 games as East Coast underdogs. And, the Falcons, they failed to cover the spread and 8 of their last 9 September games as favorites. So what does that tell you? Well, the Falcons are notorious for falling parts in games they're supposed to win. And with Cousins under center, it's hard to see them suddenly pull it together. I think the Saints defense will give them nightmares all game. And Derek Carr doesn't even have to be amazing, just not terrible. I think the bottom line here is, for me, I'm taking the Saints. I think the Falcons offense is still a lot of work needs to be done. Kirk Cousins is going to struggle against a tough Saints defense. Derek Carr will manage the game well enough to keep the Saints in control, and they'll walk out of that Mercedes Stadium with a win.
All right, James, what about you? Who are you taking in this in-division rival matchup?
Yeah, to Clay's point, again, that's a lot of, patterns, right? Of the Falcons not doing well in these opportunities, the Saints doing well in these opportunities. So I would kind of tend to think maybe the opposite could be true. Maybe this means the Falcons are due to kind of have a reverse of their roles, and similar to the Saints as well. I was originally going to take the Saints in this matchup, but I am going to go ahead and switch here at the last moment, and I'm going to go with the Falcons. I do think that this will be one heck of a game, a very, very competitive matchup going right down to the wire. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the best defenses in the NFL right now with the Saints and the Falcons. I do give the Falcons a little bit of an edge here. I'm, not necessarily sure why per se in terms of just like breaking it down at an analytical level, but I just have a little bit more trust in the Falcons right now at home. They looked good, had a winnable game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I do think this is going to be one heck of a scrap, as all divisional games are. But I will give them the win here over the Saints in a very, very tough competitive matchup.
All right, so it looks like we got Smitty going with the Falcons and James going with the Falcons, and then we got TJ and Clay going with the Saints. 2 of you will be right, 2 of you are going to be wrong, and we will be talking about that next Tuesday live at 7 p.m. Eastern here on the NFC South Roundtable. But Clay, let's go on over to you. Why don't you break down the final game here for the week here in Week 4 for the NFC South? You guys coming off of a big motivational win. What do you think about it this week?
Yeah, so can the Carolina Panthers make it, 2 in a row? Honestly, that's a tough ask. You beat the Raiders, nice morale boost, taking down the Bengals. That would be the most impressive win since we beat the Texans last season. So I think, sure, Dalton has a little extra motivation here. It's kind of a revenge game for him. He's kind of going on a revenge tour here in the next couple weeks between the Bengals, and then you got the Bears coming up. The guy spent 9 seasons, with the Bengals, and that you love to stick it to him. But let's be real. This game is going to come down to our defense. I think that if we can rattle Burrow, you confuse him in pre-snap, limit Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, you might stand a chance. But J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson are going to have their hands full with those receivers. They've been solid so far. If they play lights out football, Carolina could make this game more interesting for people to expect. So I want to say the Panthers can shock the world here. I know that the Bengals are 0-3, but let's not get carried away here. Even if they bring their A game like they did in Week 3, the Bengals are a different beast, especially if they're on. Dalton isn't going to catch anyone by surprise this time. I just think Cincinnati's firepower with Burrow, Chase, and Higgins is a lot to handle right now. The Panthers, I think they keep it close, but this feels like a game that's a bit out of our reach for their team right now, still trying to find its footing under Canales. I think it's a Panthers loss, but I don't think they embarrass themselves. I think it's progress in the right direction. I just don't expect a Cinderella story.
All right, James, let's go on up over to you. What do you think about the Panthers matchup this week?
You have no idea how badly I want to give the Panthers another win here. But I do think they will lose to the Cincinnati Bengals. Look, Cincinnati is far and away, like, they're so good. And the fact that they are 0-3 just still kind of boggles my mind a little bit. When you've got Joe Burrow in there at quarterback, when you've got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, all the different types of firepower that they have, I just don't think the Panthers defense is going to be able to keep up. I do think the offense will still look good. Again, I'm a big believer in the combination of Andy Dalton and Dave Canales in terms of Canales being able to work with veteran quarterbacks. But I think this is where you'll see the missing aspect of Derek Brown on that Panthers defense really rear its ugly head. And I think the Bengals offense is just going to be a bit too much for the Panthers to keep up with. So I will give the win here to the Bengals.
All right, TJ, what about you?
I would probably pick the Carolina Panthers if I didn't feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are going to come into this game pretty desperate. I mean, you haven't won a game all season. I just think that they're going to, come into this game, they're going to be pretty motivated because they understand. I mean, you're already playing behind the 8 ball as far as the playoff chances. I mean, the chances of a team that start 0-3 making the playoffs is pretty much slim to none. I mean, the analytics kind of, shows that. But I think they're going to do enough to win this football game. But if, you have T. Higgins out there concerned about playing, on a franchise tag, if you have Jamar Chase out there making business decisions because he ain't got a contract, you're probably going to find yourself losing this football game. But just for the simple fact that I feel like the Cincinnati Bengals are going to come into this game desperate, I got them winning.
All righty, and last but not least, Smitty, what do you think about this Panthers game?
Yeah, I don't think Joe Burrow can go 0-4. No way. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, Zach Taylor's job is in jeopardy. Yep. You got to think about the bad loss to the Patriots week 1. Week 2, a tough loss in Kansas City, 1-point loss. And then just last week, you get Monday Night Football Monday night. You lose to a rookie quarterback, and he had pretty much a good night, man. And Joe Burrow threw for 300 yards. Jamar Chase had 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's going to be too much for Carolina, man. I don't see them beating the Bengals, man, because the Bengals start 0-4, it's going to be a problem in Cincinnati. So they have to come out motivated.
Alrighty, guys. Well, that is going to be your picks and your breakdowns here for week 4 of the 2024 NFL season for the NFC South. Please make sure on the way out, you guys leave a big like on the video, subscribe to the channel for all of your NFC South news, and of course, follow each of your respective creators with the links in the description box below. We appreciate you guys for watching, and we will see you live next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Most importantly, though, guys, stay safe.